The Buddha has given the correct answer for these questions, how to practice Buddhism. So according to the Buddha, there are only 3 things we have to do. We can forget the rest. After that you cannot say, oh, it is very hard to practice Buddhism. Only 3 things. Can you remember what are those 3 things? That's right. Nothing else. Sabba papassa akara. Papa means a bad thing. Not to do bad things. Can we do that? To do good is not very difficult. Not to do bad thing is the most difficult thing. That means we cannot keep quiet. We must do some bad things. That is why the Buddha says not to do evil. Then, Kusalassa upasampada. Kusala, we say good things. Actually this word kusala means meaningful, skillful, useful. Kusala. If you want to do anything, do meaningful, useful, and harmless. Then we say good things. And these 2 things are actually many people practice. It is not very, very difficult. We can. But the last one is the most difficult thing. What is that? Purify Sachitta Pariyodapana. There's one more word there, you have forgotten. So what is the direct translation of this word? Sachitta Pariyo. Chitta means mind. Sachitta Pariyodapana. Meaning? Purify your own mind. Now that word is there. Sachitta means your own mind. Because one cannot purify another person's mind. The Buddha cannot purify our mind. God cannot purify our mind. We have to do that. Take for instance, if we are very cruel or very selfish, another person cannot take away that mental attitudes from our mind until we make up our own mind to withdraw, not to be cruel. That is why I told you another person cannot do that. But another person can give some ideas how to do that. That is what the Buddha did. The Buddha cannot purify our mind, but he can give us, teach us the method how to do that and what to do to gain this. Therefore the Buddha is important here. Otherwise the Buddha cannot purify our mind. You can go and pray to any god, asking that God to take away your anger, your jealousy, your cruelty, doesn't work. unless you make up your own mind to withdraw this. So you are responsible for your own mind. Etang buddhana sasana. This is the last line. What is the meaning of this one? Oh, you have learned only 3 lines. The last one you have not learned. That's right. Etang buddhanam anusasana. This is the message of every Buddha. Because the Buddhas have no different messages. Only one message. You cannot find different teachings. Same teaching, same message. The Buddhas appear from time to time and convey the same ideas, same message. That is what the Buddhas tell us. Now there is no difficulty for you to understand how to practice Buddhism, isn't it? So next time don't ask this question, how to practice Buddhism. Then you can tell others also. Oh, it is very easy. There is no difficulty. You have to do only 3 things. From today onward, we should not do bad things. Right? Then try to do as much as you can, all the good deeds. Even then, our minds are not pure. We can control our mind to do good things. We can control our mind not to do bad things. That is why we do good things and keep away from bad things. But all the good, not good, all the evil, bad, mental habits are there. Although we control them for the time being to be good, those evil habits again disturb the mind. We can see some good people, religious people, suddenly become very bad people, very cunning, selfish, because of that. The selfishness, greed, anger, cruelty, they keep under control, do a lot of good things. Later we can see when the hidden things come up, flare up, they do a lot of bad things. There is no guarantee. And this situation of the mental attitude remains until we attain what stage? Can you remember? Until we attain the first stage of sainthood. What is that? Sotapan. That means our minds are unreliable. I cannot trust my own mind. You cannot trust your own mind. Changes can take place. This is the uncertainty of our mind. Because circumstances, environment, temptation, irritation change the mind. Now we are good because there is nobody to disturb us. Now we are good, nobody to create temptation in our mind. But when you go out, within few minutes, certain things create temptation, certain things disturb the mind. Then there is no guarantee how we behave. So this situation remains until we attain the first stage of sainthood. That means we cannot trust anybody in this world. Just now I told you, I cannot trust my own mind. If I have not attained the first stage of sainthood, then how can I trust you? Cannot. We can bluff, we can swindle, we can disturb, because selfishness is there. So, Buddhism is for us to purify the mind. When you stop doing bad things, we purify the mind. When we do good things, we purify the mind. But that is temporary. By knowing this, we try to dig out. After digging and digging and digging, uproot the evil forces which remains in the mind. Now then the mental purity can be seen, can guarantee that this person never harm others. After that we can see, this person never bluff others. This person never get angry. This person is not jealous. This person is not greedy. But below that level, all these ingredients are there in the mind, although we do not use them. This is the situation. So, Buddhism is not a religion for us to follow anybody. Can you understand this? Cannot. We are not followers. All the others are followers. That means they follow somebody, that's all. But we are not followers. The Buddha says, don't follow me. But all the other religious teachers say, follow me, I'll take you to heaven. The Buddha says, don't follow me, I cannot take you to heaven. And there is nobody else who can take you to heaven. And that is practical. Because it is impossible for one person to take another person. It doesn't work, although people believe it. Then the Buddha says, some of my disciples who follow me every day come and worship me, praise me, and do some offerings very close to me. They follow me. Yes. Another group of people who have never seen me, never come nearer to me, never worship me, never do any offering, but they try to practice what I ask them to practice. Now then, The Buddha said, those disciples who have never seen me are nearer to me, but not these disciples who are so close to me. Although they come and worship, many of them do not practice what I ask them to practice. That is why I told you, Buddhism is not a religion for us to follow anybody. We don't follow the Buddha. There is no personality cult to depend on one person to say, I follow this. I follow Buddha, I follow this God, I follow this Guru, I follow this Master. If you follow them, you maintain blind faith. You develop your attachment toward that person. It will become personality cult. The Buddha did not encourage this. He says, don't accept anything taught by me thinking that the Buddha is a great man. You see, the Buddha's attitude. Thinking he is a very powerful religious teacher who can perform miracles. You never realize anything. Blindly you follow such gurus and teachers. An example is given. So when you are sick, you go to a doctor. He examines you and discovered, diagnosed the nature of your sickness. Then he gives either some medicines or prescription for you to buy to prepare the medicine. You bring this prescription or you bring this medicine. Without taking it, you keep. And you praise. You know that doctor is a specialist. He's a very clever doctor. He can diagnose sicknesses. He gives very good, very effective medicine. And you worship him. But you never take the medicine. Can you get rid of your sickness? Simply by praising that doctor. That is what many people are doing, to follow or to practice Buddhism. They worship, they praise and appreciate, they do some offering, but they do not know what the Buddha taught. They are ignorant, completely ignorant. When they talk about Buddhism, what do they say? People say. They never say the Buddha says like this, because they have no idea what the Buddha says. Everything they come and tell. People say we should not do this. People say we should not eat this. People say we should not worship this. Everything people say. There's no one who can say what the Buddha says. 45 years he went on teaching, but people do not know anything what the Buddha says. But they follow him blindly. That is why I told you, we are not followers, just to follow blindly. We try to understand him. When you understand him, we get confidence. That confidence is unshakable, very firm. When you follow a religious teacher, after some time you follow another one. When people talk about more power and more miraculous power about that teacher, after that you follow another teacher. Because you never realize, never understand anything. Forever you follow your gurus and teachers. Today you follow the Buddha. After that you may follow Jesus. If not, after that you may follow Sai Baba. If not, you follow Nichiren Buddha or Japanese Buddha. After that you follow another Tibetan Buddha. That means you have not learned anything. You have no confidence. Just follow blindly. Very shallow. If you can understand the Buddha, then you gain confidence. The real Buddha you can see in his teaching. You can create the real Buddha in your mind when you study what he has taught us. This is only an artistic impression created by some artist. To show us the Buddha is like this. But when you read or when you listen, when you think, the Buddha's attitude, the nature of the Buddha's advice, his wisdom and understanding, then you create the real Buddha in your mind. Oh, Buddha is like this. And today, you say the Buddha is like this, he got long ears, he got all sort of round thing on his head, and he got another thing on the top. The Buddha is like that. You know only that much. Besides all these things, we erect different kind of Buddhas. Chinese, when they erect the Buddha image, they erect Chinese face, Chinese Buddha. Indians, Indian Buddha. Japanese Buddha. Different countries, that is their Buddha. But all these differences you cannot find in the real Buddha. If you study his Dhamma, his teaching, then now let us come to the practical side, because we need something to practice. Otherwise, this can become a theory or a philosophy, if not a psychology, if not certain views, cannot last long, because people cannot understand. You may understand, but your children cannot understand. After that, disappear. That is why we need certain practices. Although real Buddhism is not there, but those practices are important to protect, to maintain Buddhism. Otherwise people will forget. Then how did they maintain this religion for the last 2,500 years? Not only through philosophy or psychology, but through various practices. And these practices are based on our culture. because we like our culture. So we incorporate, we mix up religion and culture. Culture promote religion. Religion enrich the culture. Now that is how these two things are now interrelated. Now we cannot separate our culture from religion. And we cannot separate religion from our culture. It should be like this, if you want to maintain. Now let us take Chinese culture. One of the ancient human culture on this earth. So in China, 2000 years ago, when they accepted the Buddhism, they did not follow the Indian culture and Indian tradition as Buddhism, although Buddhism was originated in India. Because in Buddhism, you can see Indian culture, Indian way of life, Indian tradition. But in many other countries like Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma, and some other countries, they are more close to Indian culture. But China, Japan, Korea, and Tibet, they have their own culture and they organize religious practices according to their own culture. Now that is why we can see vast difference when Chinese Buddhists or Sri Lankan Buddhists or Thai Buddhists get together. You can both, all are Buddhists, but a lot of differences. But they like to respect their own culture. Because of that, they maintain religion. When we separate these two things, culture also becomes very dry subject, and religion simply fade away, forgotten. So practices are important to maintain this. Now when we organize some festival, religious services, ceremonies, you can see a lot of cultural, traditional practices. Although these are not real religious practices, for us to be good, to do good, to purify the mind. But we use these things as channels to approach. Otherwise we never take keen interest. Whenever there is a festival in a temple, children, young people like to come and attend because of these practices. There are some amusement, entertainment according to their way of thinking. That is their culture. So they come and attend, enjoy. Through these practices, slowly they get into religion, get used to religion. Then they attend the chanting classes. They come and listen the talk. And slowly they get into religious way of life. If we try to introduce this religion straight away, this will become very dry, very boring subject. Now you can understand. Now you can understand. So the beginning of this Buddhist practices, how to practice Buddhism, we had to start with our cultural, traditional practices. And then bring religion. Slowly, 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 we had to bring religion very carefully, according to their age, education, understanding. Because Buddhism is a very vast subject. Now when you go for swimming, like Port Sydenham or Port Dickson, go to Port Dickson for swimming. Children, young people, elders, and all sorts of people go there. And those who do not know how to swim, they get into the water, into the sea, only up to this. They don't go beyond that, because they do not know how to swim. Some others who can swim little bit, they go further, but not very far. Some others who know how to swim very well, they go very far, swimming. So in the same way, when you are going to introduce this religion, there are morals, ethical, philosophical, psychological, scientific subject. Some are very, very deep. So you have to introduce this subject according to their age, their education, whether they can understand this or not. Those who cannot understand this waste their time. That is why many people cannot appreciate Buddhism. As a preacher or a teacher, when he teach others or when he preach others, he must understand the mentality, the understanding capacity, and the age, education of the devotees and the members. Then talk according to their mental capacity, and then appeal to their mind. That is why many people say, oh, very boring, cannot understand. So, when the Buddha wanted to talk, preach, first thing he goes on surveying, observing their mind, whether these people can understand what he is going to preach. Then sometimes he says, oh, you cannot understand this. Then he talks something else. There's a very interesting and meaningful incident. A housewife, with the permission of her husband, renounced and became a nun. Now she was practicing Buddhism, meditations in a nunnery. So one day, husband came to see her. And he was very happy because wife, he found out the wife is very happy with that way of life. Then the husband asked, actually, can you tell me what this nirvana is? Husband wanted to know this. Then the wife, the nun, told him, you cannot understand. what nirvana is. That's all. Then the husband said, no, I want to know something. Why can't you tell me something? Then she told him, in that case, you must go and see the Buddha. He can tell you what nirvana is. He went there and reported to the Buddha, I went to see that nun, my former wife. So when I asked what nirvana is, she told me that I cannot understand. Then again when I appealed her to explain further, he asked me to go and see you. Can you please tell me what nirvana is? Then the Buddha said, I think your wife has given the answer. Can you see? The wife told him, you cannot understand. So the Buddha also repeated the same thing. So your wife has given the answer. According to his way of thinking, that man cannot understand anything. Therefore, we should not explain certain things if listeners cannot understand. Supposing if a nuclear scientist come and explain nuclear science by giving a talk, what can we understand? Because we have not studied anything. Our way of thinking is different. So, to practice Buddhism, just now I told you, first we have to start with our cultural practices. So these two can support each other. Culture can promote Buddhism or religion, and religion can enrich, giving ideas. Now when we draw beautiful sceneries with religious background, that is culture and religion both. Religion has given ideas what to draw, enrich the culture. And the culture, by depicting, introduce religious aspect. Now you get together, sing songs by using any language, makes no difference. Either English or Pali or Chinese, language is immaterial. So in that singing, there is some sort of rhythm, tune. That rhythm is very important for our human mind. Food for our mind. That rhythm entertains our human emotion. Certain tunes are very appealing to our mind. But when we entertain our human emotion by listening to this tune, there are some wordings there. Then we concentrate on words. Now, there's a hymns here in the tapes. It's a life never dies. Singing. Concentrate this. What does it mean? Then you learn something. Because of this music or rhythm, you concentrate more, then learn something. After learning further and further, you may feel that tune is not important to you now. The singing is not important to you. Because you want to know the deep aspect of this. Life never dies. He has gone further. But at the beginning, that rhythm is very important. Don't condemn. Now you can understand why cultural aspect is important. Now let us come to the second stage. Cultural, traditional aspect. is Buddhism. Then, devotional aspects. Many people are devout. They have devotion. Devotion means faith. Because of this, they come and worship, pray, do some offerings or some recitals and do some work, thinking that they can gain some blessings from the Buddha or from God or from anybody. They can get rid of their sicknesses, they can live long, they can get rid of their troubles and problems, or they can become rich. They have so many beliefs. All these things come through their devotion, faith. Devotional aspect, that is very important for a religion. A religion without devotion is just like an ordinary academic subject. Now take anthropology, the development of human life. Nothing to do with religion. People take this as a scientific subject. Say biology, chemistry, geology. How old is this earth? How this earth appeared? But these things we regard as religious subject and no devotion there. Academic subject. So, the teachings of the Buddha also, if you study as a subject without devotion, remain just like one of those subjects. So devotion is very, very important. Because that devotion help us a lot to get rid of so many problems. Our worries, our uncertainty in our life, our sicknesses. The more we develop, the more we get the chance to avoid our problem. But it is not a permanent cure. Now you must understand that. By observing various practices through your devotion in the name of religion, you can experience a lot of good result immediately, within this lifetime. But all those good results are not permanent cures. That is the second stage, devotion. Now come to the third one. Third stage is called intellectual aspects. We have human intellect. We are not like animals or spirits or devas or brahmas or any other forms of living being. We have human mind. In our human mind, there is an extraordinary mental faculty which we cannot find in other living beings, closed or equipped by our ignorance, emotion, imagination, so many other dark clouds. By learning what we do, we try to remove these dark clouds from the mind. Then the intellect gets the chance to develop. That is called learning. For example, when we were small children, we have heard so many stories regarding many things. At that time we believe, yes, these are true. But after studying, we came to know all these are fairy tales, no truth, no reality. And then we remove these things from our mind. That ignorance we remove from the mind. After that the intellect get the chance to realize. Otherwise, no. Now if you maintain the same thing that you have learned when you were young, small children, your intellect never get the chance to make use of it, to gain knowledge and wisdom. You create your own imagination. So intellectual aspect is very deep in Buddhism. I should say, there is no any other religion in this world which contribute or encourage for human beings to develop this intellect. Because all the others try to keep their followers by following certain laws, certain commandments, introducing punishment. That time people never get the chance to use their intellects, to analyze, to understand. No chance. The Buddha's main purpose is encourage or pave the way for people to make use of this intellect, intelligence. We have so much rich philosophy, psychology, scientific aspect in the Buddha's teaching. Why? At that time, 2500 years ago in India, there were so many religious groups, philosophers, founders of so many other religions. So, there were so many debates, dialogues, discussion regarding various aspects of religion, life, world, universe, elements, all this. Because of this, the Buddha's teaching has become a very rich philosophy and psychology. But many other religions try to convey a message given by the God, commandments given by the God as religious laws. I see the difference now. The same thing in these commandments and in these teachings also you can see the same ideas. Now, take one example. Thou shalt not kill. Now, it is a law. It is a commandment, religious law. But before they heard this commandment, according to anthropology, human beings lived on this earth for millions of years ago. Not only few thousand years ago. And they believe they are cultured human beings. They knew this. Killing is bad. Not necessary to get a message from heaven for us to understand that killing is bad. Stealing is bad. According to our own experience, we can understand this. Not necessary to get the commandment from heaven to stop this. The Buddha's advice is this. According to your own experience, you can understand why these things are bad. That means he has given a chance for you to think. Not to accept as a law or commandment. Think. Again he says, if you cannot understand why these things are bad, then you have to think in this way. How you feel when another person come and try to kill you? How do you feel? So when you try to kill another person also, get the same feeling that you experience. That is more than enough for you to understand why it is bad. Is it necessary to get the message from heaven to understand this? We can use our intelligence, common sense. So by using our intelligence, we can understand the nature of life, the nature of problems and difficulties, nature of pleasure and happiness. Intellect is important. That is the third aspect. Now we are going on developing. We started from cultural, traditional practices. So when we come up to this level, we are not interested about the traditional, cultural, customary practices. Not very important. Because without depending on those practices, we know how to appreciate the teaching. But to come up to this level, at the beginning, these practices supported us. Therefore, we should not condemn when others practice. One person is interested in meditation. Another person interested in Abhidhamma, psychology. Some others are interested in those cultural, traditional practices. And those who like meditation and Abhidhamma condemn. That is not Buddhism. A child is throw away all this rubbish. They are not understanding people. Because their way of thinking and these people's way of thinking are entirely different. One day these people also get the chance to develop up to that level. So our duty is to pave the way for them to develop this. Then the last aspect, that is called a spiritual aspect. This is the final goal. We can develop our intellect as a knowledge. We know everything. But that knowledge itself doesn't serve the purpose for us to get rid of our sufferings. Physical and mental suffering, unsatisfactoriness in our life. There are so many great people, very highly intellectuals, great philosophers, scientists, psychologists. Their way of thinking is very, very deep, penetrating knowledge they have. But they are very poor in this respect as far as a spiritual development is concerned. See the difference now. Because we can see human weaknesses in them, although they are very intelligent people. Anger, egoism, grudge, jealousy, you can find in their mind. But they are great thinkers. Here you can understand why the spiritual development is important. Here at the beginning we mentioned how to practice Buddhism. We need only 3 things. Keep away from bad things, do good things, and purify your own mind. This purification is called spiritual development. Without this purification, whatever we do, there will be some selfishness, egoism, greed in our mind. Then the troubles start from there. Why? Whatever we handle today, the whole world, religious people, politicians, rulers, whatever they handle, why there are so many troubles and problems and calamities and enmity and jealousy? Because in their mind they maintain selfishness, cunningness, greed. Politicians and all those religious groups, they maintain jealousy, enmity, grudge. Minds are not pure. So the last aspect is the purification of the mind. That is the most difficult thing for us to do. We cannot jump at once to this. We have to go on like this, developing and developing and developing and developing. First, we must know our own weaknesses. If we are not ready to admit, accept our own weaknesses, we never gain that a spiritual development or mental purity. What is that? Now if we are jealous, we had to accept, admit, we are jealous. I am jealous. Don't try to deny, no, I am not jealous. No purity in that mind. If I am selfish, if I do things only for my own benefit, disregarding how others feel, whatever good deeds I do, no purity in my mind. So I do everything with ulterior motive. By realizing one by one, we have to reduce all the human weaknesses, then cultivate the positive side, good qualities, honesty, compassion, understanding, patience, good qualities. Then spiritual realm. That is the final goal. That is the aim of our religion. This is the way how to practice Buddhism. Exactly 1 hour.